Hey, what's up? We're live now. And I kind of find it weird now that my video isn't here. And it's just, hey, dislike already. Nice. This is not working. This is not working. This is working. Okay, let's bring this here. Hmm. 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 Okay. But I want to start with where we left off last time. Excuse me. Pages. From when is the past paper going to start? We don't have the exact date right now jotted down. I'm guessing early April, like first week of April, it should start. The next chapter, we're just gonna talk a bit about hydrogen fuel cells. It's not tested in the syllabus as much, uh, but I think it's kind of just a bit important, just to like see cells in a different light, and just so we won't spend more than 10 minutes on this. So let me try drawing one real quick. Okay, are we ready to start? How much is the syllabus left? Well, I'm gonna say 5%, 7% if I'm being generous. So like very little. Like the name of the topics, like you might think, oh, there's so many topics left, but they're like very tiny, tiny. If it works out, we'll be finishing 2 topics. Yeah. So right. So let's see how that goes. Okay, let's try making this real quick, like that. Actually, let me just cheat. Mm-hmm. Copy. Copy. Okay, I think we're almost there. Now, we saw a cell the day before, right? Not yesterday. We saw how a cell could work. And what we'll do is, let's run here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to do is have two electrodes side by side in this metal enclosing, right? Now we don't care about the material this time around. They're just electrodes. The one on the right is my cathode. The one on the left is my anode, right? And you could literally put Terminal is on top, and that's connected to a bulb, right? Like that. Now in the middle, you have an electrolyte, a solution that is able to conduct electricity, has free moving ions. I'm drawing, I'll get to that. I'm drawing a fuel cell. Okay. I had to do this on Saturday, complete this on Saturday. But let's just take a closer, quick look at this and we'll continue. Take it, just absorb as much as you can right now. Okay, what's gonna happen? Hang on. Let me just read some comments. Hello, Abdul Ghani. Zoom has started. And past paper session will start sometime like early April. Someone else joined. Okay. So what happens here on the left-hand side is hydrogen enters this chamber. Hydrogen gas. Right? It enters this chamber, and over here with the anode, it reacts with the anode and turns into H plus ions. So when it's reacting at the anode, what is it actually doing? It's transferring electrons from the molecule, which it has, right? Let's just draw that first. It has 2 electrons bonded, and what it does is the 2 electrons come out and go into the anode, and you're left with, this turns into H2H plus ions, and the electrons go in here. And much like last time, the electrons from here travel all the way to the cathode lighting this bulb. You have more electrons over here and it lights up the bulb, right? So there's more electrons over here, there's a higher potential voltage, and they go all the way here. And over here what's happening is on the other side, oxygen is entering. Okay. Now oxygen does something very similar. You can imagine it can collect the it can collect the electrons from over here. It can collect the electrons from over here. But what also happens is these hydrogen ions are also able to travel from here through the electrolyte towards this chamber with this electrolyte in the middle. It allows, now I haven't discussed what the electrolyte is, and it's not too important. It's just some electrolyte that allows H plus ions to travel through it and get to the other side. And once it gets to the other side, what happens is you have hydrogen ions, a lot of electrons, and oxygen. And all of this can react together to form water. Now, do you need to remember this equation or anything like that? Not really. We're just seeing how this procedure works. And water is produced. Okay. Oxygen collects the electrons, turns into O2 minus ions, which can then react with hydrogen to form water. And this equation needs to be balanced. So let's try balancing it out. You'll need 4 hydrogens, I think 4 electrons. That looks right. Okay, with me so far? Yeah? What do you guys think? Yeah? Okay. Now what you're doing is, and of course when water is produced, you're done with it, water leaves out. And there's a constant intake of hydrogen coming in, oxygen coming in, and them reacting, water being produced. And this gives you a lot of electricity, right? Quite a bit of electricity. Now, can you guys think of any advantages of this system? If I had the system actually working, can you guys think of any advantages for this? Let's say if I use this to power my car, a car like a Tesla. Instead of charging it, I use it to power my car. Is that a good solution? Why not, Mr. Maisam? Maisam says, no, I don't think so. I just realized I think the line at the bottom is a bit skewed. Yeah, you're thinking. So I haven't talked about how much energy comes out of it in this reaction. Quite a bit. It is a good solution. And why do you think it's a good solution? So energy, I'll tell you, energy-wise, it's much better than petrol. So that's an obvious win. What other wins can you think? What other wins from this situation can you think? Yeah, less or no pollution, more or less, right? Because it just produces water, and that's it. And the process itself is like it won't uh, be incomplete. It'll always produce water. Yeah, water is drinkable. Even that water dripping out of a car exhaust pipe, that's drinkable as well. Like, like a car, if it's tuned perfectly, actually, don't try this. I'm not 100% certain. Something bad could happen. But if you buy a new car, let's try drawing a car. That's a fancy car, right? It's a fancy if the top is like that. I think that's a horrible car. But at the exhaust, if it's a new car, you'll notice there are water droplets coming out if you let it run. This is because any hydrocarbon reacts with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide and O2. And the carbon dioxide is a gas, so that goes away. And because the reaction is very hot, most of the water also gets away as steam, right? But some of the water that condenses in the pipe will drip out. It produces a lot of water actually. I don't know. It's just because it's not meant to be, you're not meant to drink it. So they're like, in the system, whatever, they don't try to keep it, ensure it that it's clean. But if you had a car that was, like you could drink it, honestly, like, what's that? When you have methane burning in stoves, you can literally, like, let me draw. Like, if you have a stove at home, like a chula, right? And it's burning fire and it's burning methane, right? Methane CH4. That's also going to produce the same thing. And what you could do is literally hold a glass upside down and it'll collect all the gases coming out. And over time, you'll realize it's fogging up because condensation is taking place and all that steam gets trapped on the inside of the glass. You can try this, it'll only take a minute and it's going to happen. And you can flip it inside out, and if there was enough water, you could actually drink it. Hygienic, it's probably more hygienic than tap water, I'm guessing, because It could have impurities in it. So if your CH4 was pure, you would have no issue. But if your CH4 had other things in it, I don't know if it's how pure it is, the methane in our, in our gas lines. So if it had like sulfur dioxide in it or something, maybe it might be bad for you to drink it. I don't know. But no one's tried it. No one does it. But otherwise, you can filter it and then drink it. Then it's drinkable, definitely. Okay. One such high is highlighting that this is a very eco-friendly reaction, and this is a very good reaction. And hydrogen reacting with oxygen generally will give out a lot of energy. Hydrogen is also used as rocket fuel, hydrogen and oxygen together, to burn because the amount of energy they give out. ठीक है. But let me ask you a question. Which one, where is oxidation taking place and where is reduction taking place? What's cheap? This process? It's not too expensive. The dangers of this is, I'll just explain why people don't use it. But let's answer this question first. Um, where is reduction taking place at which terminal or which electrode, and where is oxidation taking place? You're welcome, Somu. I already have my first dislike though. Okay, I'll tell you, no one's answering that. Over here, you have oxidation taking place because loss of electrons, oxidation, and on the other side, you're gaining electrons and reduction is taking place. But another way of finding that out is the cathode is named the cathode because the terminal is called a cathode if reduction is taking place there. So cathode will always have reduction and anode will always have oxidation. But this is more or less it. I'll answer Abdul Ghani's question. I think he's trying to ask why don't we use it? And one of the reasons why we don't use it, you can, is that one of our sources of hydrogen is from fossil fuels. So it's essentially doing the same thing, right? And another reason why you don't do it is that hydrogen is a gas and is extremely flammable. So makes a good fuel source, but it's a little too flammable. Whereas if this leaks out and something catches fire, it's not just gonna explode, it's gonna explode, right? Big boom. Or what do you call it? Big what? I don't know. But does this make sense? Shall we move on? This is more or less it for a fuel cell. Rida, Masam, Haya, Hanan, Mr. Ghani. Clear so far? Shall we move on? All clear. Okay. So are we dead today as well, or yeah, I don't know. All clear? All clear? Okay. Why don't you guys reply? Why don't you guys reply? Why don't you guys reply? Okay, alright. Chalo, I'll move on, fine. Okay. Okay, one thing is really important to us is food. Food, you can appreciate, is very important for us, for humans. And to develop good quality food is, well, really important, and cheaply and affordably and efficiently as well, right? Now, what really is food? Well, you could have. Um, can I say all food is just plants? Can I be obtuse like that? Can I say all foods are plants or their primary source is plants? Because if you have meat, meat comes from animals which live on plants. You guys get this. Most people, have that understanding. ठीक है. Now, plants need two things to grow, or like three or four, a few things. And so there's sunlight, water, and everything. But one thing which we can control, well, water we can control as well, and we do it, but we just get the water to the plants at the right time. So that's irrigation. But another thing plants need is good nutrients or fertilizer. Fertilizer is very important to plants because that's what they process. They take it from the soil, the fertilizer, where the fertilizer is there, and if they want to develop and grow healthy, that's their food source. They extract all the minerals and everything from it. Take it. And a few things that makes fertilizer really good is a few things, which are nitrogen, potassium. Let me see if I can spell potassium correctly. I wonder if it has two S's. I think it has two S's and one T. The other way. Potassium. And what else was it? Phosphorus, of course. Phosphorus. Nitrogen has a symbol N. Potassium has a symbol K. And phosphorus, well, P. ठीक है. And a fertilizer that we we kind of make to have high amounts of nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus in it is called NKP fertilizer. Have you guys ever heard of this term before? NKP fertilizer? NPK? Sorry, NPK. Sorry, my bad. NPK fertilizer. My bad. Where have you heard this? NPK. Heard about it where? Oh, geography. Oh, I see. Okay. So we're going to focus on during science. Okay. I had to, get to university to hear about it. So our primary focus is nitrogen. Okay, how do we get nitrogen into the fertilizer? Now, normally nitrogen is not present. Nitrogen is a gas. It's not present directly, but it's in some sort of compound form. So some such forms are ammonium nitrate, ammonium sulfate, and well, for potassium you have potassium sulfate, you have also ammonium phosphate. Okay. Why do you think plants need nitrogen, by the way? Because it also needs potassium and phosphorus, but why do you think, because our focus is nitrogen, why do you think it needs so much nitrogen? Or not much of it, but for growth. Okay. Anything else? For growth and protein, right? Protein, if you remember your amide linkage, there's a nitrogen there, isn't it? That's your amide linkage. all your proteins are joined together by nitrogen. All amino acids, or they're called amino acids because they have nitrogen in them. So they have, every amino acid has one nitrogen in them. So you can imagine it's kind of important. Okay. And so it's really useful for good fertilizer to have these compounds in it. So plants can use them. Now to manufacture them, you need nitrogen, but nitrogen, you just can't throw nitrogen onto phosphorus and, you know, turn it into these compounds. What you really need is ammonia, NH3. Okay, because ammonia will readily react with nitrates and other sulfates and phosphates even, or like sulfates over here, sulfates and phosphates, to produce these things. And manufacturing ammonia is very important for us. Now think about it this way. If we didn't know how to manufacture ammonia, we wouldn't have the food we have right now, because the soil itself doesn't have enough of these important ingredients. If we couldn't do it, food would be a lot more expensive, and I think our population would be a lot less. Okay, so do you guys appreciate how important ammonia is for our use case? Yeah? Value to ammonia, power to ammonia. Okay. Now, do you guys know how ammonia is made? I think you have some idea if you haven't studied it anywhere else, because we kept showing ammonia a lot. The reaction is kind of valued a lot in different rate reactions and reversible reactions. Haber's process, exactly. But do you guys know the equation? I was asking more in the chemical sense. Okay. Not in the chemical sense. Let me just bring this up. Okay. I've been told this pink looks really bad. What do you guys think? Or if not bad, it doesn't suit the other colors. Right? And this is what I was trying to ask. Maybe I should have been more direct. Nitrogen can react with hydrogen under the right conditions to produce ammonia. And this happens a lot at a large scale, a very large scale. And this process of producing ammonia, like Miral said, is known as the Haber process, or Haber's process. ठीक है. You guys following so far? Can I just... Yep, straightforward. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about generally what happens. Then we can talk about chemically what's going on. Sorry. Right. And this is a diagram from the book. And if it doesn't exactly look like this, but it's a good representation of what's going on. Okay. So what happens is it starts from here where nitrogen and hydrogen are mixed together. I think this part is just like, okay. They're mixed together, they're enter here, they are mixed together, they go through a compressor. The compressor, what it's they're trying to highlight is not only is it pumping it, but also keeping the pressure high. Why is it keeping the pressure high? Those questions will be asked again in a bit. Nitrogen and hydrogen are pumped over here over a catalyst. I hope it doesn't say which catalyst it is, because I want to ask, what is the catalyst? What is over here? What is over here? What am I highlighting? Exactly, it is indeed iron, like you're saying. This is iron. Can I also ask, why is it in this weird configuration? Why is it so weird about, like don't you think it's weird? Why can't you just throw iron like normally, like a wow, okay, to maximize the surface area? Yeah, okay, I still don't think in an actual Haber's process it actually is laid out like this. I'm sure it's way more complicated. I'm thinking honeycomb structure. I think that would be ideal, but I don't know. But they're trying to show this diagram this particular way because they're trying to again maximize the surface area, surface exposure of ammonia. So they make sure each and every molecule of nitrogen and hydrogen gets to interact with some iron. So they make sure there's a lot of iron in there. And the good thing about iron is you don't use that too much or at all, because it's a catalyst. Catalysts take part in a reaction but do not get used up. And the problem with this reaction is it has very low yield. What does that mean? When I say very low yield, what does that mean? I actually ended up ignoring everyone on YouTube. Can I just go back there and have a look? Thank you so much, Somu. And okay, I'm gonna call you Ted because that's the best I can do. But thank you, Ted, and thank you, Somu. But synthesis of DNA? Something synthesis of DNA, I don't know. But I would never miss this. Okay, thank you. All right. Less ammonia is produced. Yeah, the yield is low. Yield talks about the amount of substance you can produce theoretically and the amount of substance that gets produced, right? So technically, if you use, let's say, if you were to make 100 tons of ammonia or a lot of ammonia, you end up only making 5 or 10 tons. So it has a very low yield. And what they do is they cool it down, because this happens at a very high temperature and pressure, 200 atmospheres and 450 degrees. They cool it down, and they cool it down because ammonia is a larger molecule. It has a lower or higher boiling point. Wait a minute, I'm confused. If you cool it down, it has a higher boiling point, right? So it'll melt? Not yet. I'm not writing. I'm trying to figure out, should I say ammonia has a higher boiling point or a lower boiling point? It has a... wait, this is embarrassing. Where does the boiling point of ammonia lie? it's a gas at room temperature. Well, so is everything else. It has a, geez. So you cool it down. I just can't think. Does it have a higher boiling point or a lower boiling point? Give me a second. Compared to nitrogen, so when you cool it down, ammonia turns into a liquid, but others don't because you're at a higher temperature, and when you cool it, so I'm gonna say it has a higher boiling point, right? That makes sense. It has a higher boiling point. Let me just write it down and think about it. What do you guys think? Does it have a higher boiling point? Because if it reaches its boiling point quicker, yeah, then it'll melt. Oh, sorry. Then it'll turn into a liquid. Higher boiling point. Is that correct? What do you guys think? Am I right? Yes, you cannot see. Sorry. I wasn't writing earlier, but I didn't notice. Everything went away. Give me a second. I don't know why it went away. My bad, I didn't see the screen. Is it back? Yes, it's back. I just kind of got stuck here. I was saying ammonia should have a higher boiling point. Because you have hydrogen, ammonia being produced from hydrogen and nitrogen, and you have ammonia, nitrogen, and hydrogen, and you bring it down, you cool it down, and ammonia is the one that condenses first and turns into a liquid. So that means it has a higher boiling point, right? Yeah, negative 33. But you have to compare anyway. Hang on, give me a second. 25. Okay. Yeah, I think it has a higher boiling point. Because it makes sense, once you cool it down, the higher value reaches first, and it turns into a liquid. Like this is, if I had a scale, let me just make some more room. If I had a scale of temperature, and this is, let's say, 0 degrees, just for reference, and you have 3 gases. Let's say this is ammonia, this is nitrogen, and this is hydrogen. So as the temperature from the right, because it's really high right now, it's 450, you cool it down, it should have a higher boiling point. So once it crosses this, it's going to turn into a liquid. So you make sure the boiling point is somewhere here. That's what I was thinking. So it should have a higher boiling point. Okay, that makes sense now. Okay. So because it has a higher boiling point, it'll turn into a liquid. And because the yield is low, most of the ammonia and hydrogen is over here, which is sent back to the pump, which goes through the process again. Right? Over and over. So you're not only recycling, you're also encouraging one thing. And let's go back here and let's see what else you're encouraging. Now, what you're trying to encourage is this reaction primarily lies on the left-hand side. You have, when these reactants are in equilibrium, you'll have more nitrogen and hydrogen, right? So once you take all this excess nitrogen and hydrogen and put it back into the container, you're taking away the ammonia, you're decreasing it because you remove it, but you also end up increasing the nitrogen and hydrogen, so which ends up producing more ammonia, which you then take away again and put the rest of the ingredients back in it again, and this cycle keeps on happening. And when the ingredients get too low, you just add more of nitrogen and hydrogen back into the system, right? What other factors are mentioned over there are that this happens at 200 atmospheres, this reaction, and 450 degree Celsius. One thing I didn't mention is this reaction is also exothermic. That means heat is produced when this reaction is taking place. So why do you think you want the temperature to be high when, if this is an exothermic reaction, wouldn't the equilibrium favor a reaction that is lower? Won't more ammonia be produced if this is exothermic? So if you have to decrease the temperature, more ammonia will be produced, because for a reversible reaction, increasing the temperature will favor the endothermic side. So decreasing the temperature will favor the exothermic side. What if we increase the temperature even more? Well, even less ammonia will be produced. Abdul Ghani, is there lag? Abdul Ghani says clear, but I'm asking a question right now. 6:46. Lower boiling point, since it's again, I'm saying compare Ukhti, I'm comparing it. I'm sorry, my voice is a bit low. I'm comparing it to hydrogen and nitrogen's boiling points. So I believe ammonia has to have a higher boiling point, because if it's higher, it'll turn liquid once you cool down. You're going reverse in the temperature scale. You're going from a higher temperature to a lower temperature. No, I just got the answer of my question. Oh, okay, okay, makes sense. But my question again, why do you think you're keeping it at 450 degrees Celsius? Any ideas? It makes sense to have high, maintain the pressure. Oh, that makes sense. That's a good point. To maintain that pressure, yeah. But what's maintaining the pressure is actually pumps. So you could actually bring this even higher, and you'll have, because there are 4 moles of gas on the left hand side, 2 moles on the right hand side, even increasing the pressure will favor the reaction on the right hand side. So you can really drastically improve your yield. Optimum temperature, but aren't we arguing why this is the optimum temperature? Because all our studies and our understanding of the chemical reactions tell us this is not the optimum temperature. Like optimum is more or less, it's an efficiency term, right? How efficiently, or the best temperature, that's what optimum means, or optimum temperature is translated into that, right? Why is this on optimum temperature? Because don't we see changing these temperatures and pressures could lead to a higher yield? Because the forward reaction is exothermic reaction and increase in temperature is not favored. I'm talking about decrease in temperature. Why don't you decrease the temperature and increase the pressure? How do you increase the temperature, let's say? How do you increase the temperature? How would you increase the temperature of some reaction? By giving heat, I guess. Think real life. Think less chemistry. When I found this out, when I was told this back in O levels, I was like, whoa. Like it made me smarter, I think. I didn't go, whoa, this is so cool or anything. It wasn't cool. I think it made me smarter and more knowledgeable when I found the answer for this out. How do you heat something up? How do you increase the temperature? Increasing the thermostat? Okay. Yes, okay. What I was going for is you increase the temperature and pressure by, you know, giving it more fuel and burning more fuel, whatever fuel you have. If you have an electrical thing, you give it more, you know, put more heaters on it or whatever. But end of the day, you're consuming more and more energy, and energy is equal to energy to an economist or a person who does the accounting. Energy is equal to money. So if you decrease the temperature and increase the pressure, you'll get a higher yield. But what's going to happen is decreasing the temperature might increase, like, save your costs, right? So that's not really concerned right now. So let's talk about pressure. To maintain a higher pressure, you need pumps which are pushing more and more. They're using more and more energy, increasing the cost of the reaction, right? So at this temperature and pressure, like at this temperature, so you can't increase it too much, otherwise ammonia being sold would be very expensive because the manufacturing of that ammonia is really expensive. And what ends up happening is if you decrease the temperature, the rate of the reaction slows down. The rate of the reaction slows down, so you produce the same amount of ammonia or even more ammonia, but because the rate is lower, the time taken to produce that ammonia increases. So at a given amount of time, you make little ammonia, and that's the issue. So Haber more or less figured out at 200 atmospheres and at 450 degrees Celsius, using iron as a catalyst, this is the most economical way of producing ammonia. Does that make sense? Ukti, you got it, but I think there was a delay. So, and that's essentially it. This is why you have this particular condition set. This is why you could have more of these systems making ammonia and it'll just be cheaper. Isn't that kind of interesting that you're not going for the highest yield or the highest rate? At a certain temperature and pressure, you get the most value for your money and you can make it really cheap. Isn't that, how many of you guys find that interesting? Because I know I did. Maybe not anymore. I don't know, but I found it very interesting. What do you guys think? Miral, Mesam, Haya, Hanan, Mr. Khani. Was that interesting or no? Pretty interesting? Okay. Yeah, I was like, whoa, this is what engineers do. They just don't have fuel and energy in mind. They have to pay attention to money as well, because end of the day, people need to eat, and what gets them food is money, you know? Like, it is a smart thing. So an engineer comes along and says, like, think about it. This guy's producing ammonia for thousands of dollars a gallon, and this guy comes along, I'll give it to you for 50. And, you know, like, how are you doing it? Well, I just decrease my temperature and like decrease my temperature pressure, and I used a bit of iron, you know, and yeah, it works. Yeah, it is really smart. Okay, and that's more or less it about ammonia. Make sure you understand this part. I think this is kind of, because most reversible reactions have, sorry, why did I do that? Most reversible reactions questions will have just ammonia in it. We just do like 3 or 4 types of reversible. If you notice, you can probably memorize all of them, right? Not that I'm saying you should, but most of them will have ammonia in it. And a follow-up question for catalyst, the temperature and pressure shows up. This you have to know. Let me just highlight it. This is something you have to know. Iron you already know. It's strongly advised you memorize these 2 values as well. But I think by the end of this class, you already know it really well. Okay, let me just have a quick glance at the book I have open. Yeah. Okay. ठीक है. Oh, we're done with the process, but we have to talk about. ठीक है. Okay. Now this ammonia ends up producing this ammonia. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, one thing before we're not done with ammonia. Where do I get this hydrogen from? And where do I get this nitrogen from? Please tell me. Where is the source? How do I get this nitrogen from? And how do I get this? Well, nitrogen, of course. 80% of our breathing air is nitrogen, of course. By fractional distillation, of course, yes, yes. And hydrogen comes from fossil fuels. Because hydrogen is the side product of cracking, if you remember. It's the side product, right? You get fuels out, you extract oil, petroleum, right? You filter it and everything, and you extract all your useful alkanes out. And the not so useful alkanes, the one with the bigger count, you crack them to make it into the more useful, smaller hydrocarbons. And when you crack them, a lot of the times, if not all of the times, hydrogen is produced as a byproduct. A lot of fertilizer companies or ammonia manufacturing plants are right next to petroleum plants. So all these industries are right next to each other, right? And that's also interesting, I feel. But oh well. So they can collect the hydrogen right there and bring it for ammonia and produce ammonia with this reaction in the Haber's process. ठीक है. Now we're done with ammonia. Now we're done. Now, using ammonia, you can make a lot of salts, all these compounds, and they make the fertilizer really good. Can you think of one drawback of this? Anything in life, whatever is good, even if you get a lot of money, there's always a downside to it. And much like anything good, this also has, as good as it is, also has a strong downside. Can you guys think of that downside? Haya is saying hydrogen from hydrocarbons. That is true, but you want to be more specific. It's from cracking of hydrocarbons. Because hydrocarbons still have those hydrogens. You can't just extract them. The only way, or like, if you could find a way to extract them, that would cost you money. But cracking is something that's already producing hydrogen, and they're doing it for other reasons. So their waste, which you get all that hydrogen for free or very little money because it's just freaking waste, is also ends up reducing the cost of food, because cheaper hydrogen means cheaper ammonia. Cheaper ammonia means cheaper fertilizer. Cheaper fertilizer means cheaper food. So if you got hydrogen some other way from hydrocarbons, that would more or less be a more difficult way. You can also get hydrogen from the electrolyzing water, right? We've seen it. But we don't take it from there because that's an expensive process. Electricity is used a lot. So cheap. That's the way. Cheap doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But my question is, what do you think is a downside of fertilizers? Of having such powerful, so good fertilizers? What's a good, what's a bad effect? Any idea? No? Any ideas? Any ideas? Mm-hmm. Like it could exalt the fertility of the soil? No, not really. It escapes with the soil treating it with quicklime. It escapes. So nitrates, all nitrates are soluble. Nitrates are highly soluble, and if you haven't noticed, all of these salts are more or less nitrates, right? Or they're not nitrates, sorry. One is nitrates, but these are very soluble compounds, and there's also a lot of water when it comes to these things. So here's an example. Let's say there was farmland over here. This is farmland. This is a black box of farmland. These are plants, right? Now a farmer, what he'll do is over time, like this is has the good fertilizer, right? The NPK fertilizer. What a farmer does is irrigates the crops. So the water comes into the soil, and over time, all those ammonium ions and whatnot, because it's all sand, right? Over time, because the water is already flowing down this particular pond over here, over time will flow into this particular pond in question. And what's going to happen here is the sea life over here, or like plants in this pond, will get really good, or they'll be fertilized. Even this, technically, this soil over here will get fertilized, and the water becomes richer for plant life, which promotes the growth of a certain plant called algae. Now, algae, unlike other plants, cover the surface of the water. Right? Have you seen algae? It's like a green, thick green, like, yeah, I'm sure you've seen it. Thick green. You know what you like if you've ever walked into an abandoned park, right? Especially abandoned, and then if ever there's water there, there's always algae on top of it. I just realized that, and that's true because in all parks they use high quality fertilizer because you don't, like you want to grow beautiful plants, so they use high quality fertilizer, and all that water doesn't go anywhere. And if there's like a pond in there somewhere, or like water collects for long enough, it turns into like it has a lot of algae grown in it real quick, and that green stuff grows on it real quick. And the problem with algae is if this is a pond with like life under the surface, like fishes and whatnot, algae blocks out the sun or the sunlight from entering. It blocks it out. So sunlight cannot get in, which kills off all the underwater plants, which end up killing organisms that feed off of those plants, like fishes. Like I keep saying fish, and all that bacteria, and all that bacteria eating the dead plants consume a lot of oxygen, which also depletes the oxygen levels of the water, and that ends up killing even more fish. So it pretty much destroys the whole ecosystem of that pond. And this doesn't happen in ponds. I just gave ponds as an example. This happens everywhere. Any river going down from a farm, if the farmers are a little too generous with their fertilizer, if they think like, oh, let's just put a lot of it, what's the harm, right? Over time, what's going to happen is any ponds, lakes, even down to the ocean downstream, will end up, this will happen, and a lot of sea life will suffer. I'm sorry, not the sea. The sea does not. And this process, but I think there is some, how do you spell it? My spelling is so bad. Eutrophication. eutrophication. This process is called eutrophication. ठीक है, does this make sense? ठीक है. So if I ask you, what is one downside of using NPK fertilizers or using too much of it? Downside is it causes eutrophication, which ends up causing life in ponds and lake, underwater sea life, or not sea. I keep going to the sea. Underwater life to suffer. ठीक है. Does this make sense? Eutrophication? Yes or no? Mamoon, hello? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. ठीक है. One other issue about this is that this can also make its way to our drinking water. And what it does is a lot of nitrate ions in our drinking water can cause, I think they react with hemoglobin and decrease its oxygen carrying capacity. It's always oxygen carrying capacity, isn't it? But yeah, it can decrease the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood, and that could lead to diseases or people getting sick. ठीक है. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? So fish suffocate. Okay. ठीक है. Is there anything else? All right. Tomorrow, I think we'll work on the contact process and just air and pollution, and wrap up quite a big chunk, or quite a big of our remaining list of things to do. ठीक है. All right. ठीक है. Any last minute questions? Any last minute questions? Okay, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. Same time, same place. ठीक है, guys. All right, thank you for coming. Sorry for the slightly longer class. Bye bye, Miral. Bye, Masam. Bye, guys. Take care. Bye bye. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye bye. Bye, YouTube. Thank you for 14 likes and 1 dislike. Bye bye, guys. Take care.